Hello and welcome to today's video. Now, today I'm not really doing anything too exciting. I'm having a look at a couple of ongoing projects. One of them being this this Philips VR6860. Now, when we left this, we had basically refitted the basically repaired the deck and got it to a stage where it was playing back without any issues whatsoever, and it was actually doing that very well, to be honest with you. The next thing that I was actually keen to look at was the front panel VU display, because at the moment that's not working. So let's get a closer look. There we go. So what we're going to do first is just to pop off the front panel, which shouldn't actually be too difficult. And indeed it wasn't, it literally just comes off. And one of the things that I discovered was there is I think it's a transistor or a transistor somewhere on this circuit board. I think it's underneath here actually, so this might have to come off as well, which should have, when the display is in standby, it should have a 35 volt supply to one of the base pins, and I'd be interested to see if that is indeed the case. I'm just actually struggling with getting this off at the moment. I'm sure it's supposed to come off, but I'm not quite sure how, unless that's in the way. And oh, it looks like it's clipped in at the bottom. Probably more clipped in on this side than on the other side. Can't see the transistor that I was thinking of, just a series, well, just a couple of chips, unless it's on the other side of the board, which is also a possibility. So what I might need to do is actually get this board out itself, which would mean the whole board coming out of the deck, well, just coming up like so. So just pop that back there. Oh, I've just found the transistor. It's right there. But we do need to get the board out so we can measure the voltage across it. And thankfully, or not, hopefully, or I'm hoping that it will gently come free from here. There doesn't seem to be any screws or anything holding this in place. The only thing really holding it in place is down at the bottom. But I don't want to pull it too hard because I don't want to break it, if I'm going to be honest. Because breaking this would be not the best, and would put a bit of a dampener on proceedings. And oops, I do wonder if there is something potentially holding it in place. I wonder if I can get this out of the way. The IR module. Alright, hold on fire for a minute. I'm going to have a look at this off camera. As I suspected, if you move this out of the way, which is the IR receiver, which just clips into there, so you just need to gently prise that back, this will come out, although it does snag a little, admittedly, over the headphone jack. So that's just something to be aware of when you're taking it out. Take this out first, and as I say, that just slots into there normally, but if you prise back the plastic very gently, that will pop out. And then this will come up, but there will be a bit of extra persuasion needed just to wriggle it over that. Now, what I'm going to do is to power this on. That's all quite normal. There we go. And if I take it out of standby, there she is. And on the switch on the front, we have on for manual or on or off for auto. So let's switch it to auto. So that means this should be coming on about now, but obviously it isn't. So what we'll do is we will move that down there, pop this up here, and we're going to be focusing on this transistor here, which just comes through to those pins there. And I'll just grab a multimeter. Now when it's in on mode, it should have voltage to all of the pins. Can't remember the exact figure off the top of my head, but there should be voltage across all pins. So let's find my multimeter. There it is. It's going to be a direct voltage, so it's not alternating. There we are. So we'll just earth it to something suitable. Transformer core should do the job. And what have we got? Let's pop that up again. So at one pin we have 30.9 volts. At another pin we have 0. And at another pin we have 0. So when it's in the off position, it should read at one of those pins about 30.9 volts. When it's in the on position, it should be reading something across all pins. If I switch it to the off position, and if I just check that again, so at this pin it is 30, nothing, and nothing, which is what you would expect when the switch is turned off. If I put the switch on to the on position, it's at that point that you would expect the unit to light up. So you still got your 30.8 base voltage, then you've got nothing and nothing, and you should have voltage across those other two pins, not just the one pin. So that is a good sign. We do have voltage going to the transistor, but we've got nothing from the transistor out. So it's quite possible that the transistor itself is at fault. And let's see if we can test that. We won't test it whilst it's turned on. I'm just trying to see if I've got my other tester anywhere. What I will do, I've got some super glue here, is we will give this switch a bit of a... Oh, there's actually nothing in that one now. Let's grab my contact cleaner, which is over here. There we go. There we are. Don't think that'll make any difference, to be honest with you, but it's worth a go. Yeah, no change. It would be interesting to see if there's any voltage now at those other pins. So let's just pop that over again, put this on again. I'll actually set that up there this time so you can see the voltages. And you start off with the first pin, which will hopefully read 30 volts. You can actually see that there. Then the second pin in the on position should have something as well. That's got nothing and nothing. So there is a problem, and I think the problem is that little transistor. So we just need to get a replacement one of those, and hopefully we will have the hi-fi display back again. What I will do though is I'll just power it off. There we go, so that's powered off now. And I'm going to grab my little tester. See, I don't think this will work with it very well in circuit, but I'm going to give it a go anyway. I haven't actually used this for quite a while, certainly not since I've moved, so I hope it's still got power. And yes, it has. It's only got 3.79 volts, so that ultimately might need a bit of a charge up, but we do still have something. Let's try and find the probes for it, which, there they are, should be in here. And I'll just try and hook this up, so bear with me. So just try the test again. That does seem to suggest that it's working, but I'm not 100% convinced that it is, to be honest with you. So it would be interesting to see if replacing it does actually resolve the issue, or if it really just is something as simple as this switch. So we do have a couple of things to try, which is good. Now the next one is this. Has this been evacuated? Nope, because this little silver spot here has not gone milky. If it was milky in colour, then air would have got into there. And I do wonder actually. So at the moment that's in the on position. Let's have a look at the circuit tracks coming off of there. So it's in the on position, and it would be interesting to see if bridging a couple of those pins, if that actually does anything. So on at the moment. Put the deck on again. There we go, and standby. That is on. Obviously never try this at home. Nah, nothing. Dead. And the heater wires, you can't, if you shroud it like this, like that, if you're lucky you can see the heater wires, and they should, if it's actually on or able to be turned on, they should be glowing a sort of red colour, but those are not, which is why I suspect that the problem could be that transistor. So we're going to give that a go at some point, actually try replacing that, and that might actually bring back the VU meters, which is always a possibility. I'm not going to start randomly twiddling those because I am not certain what they do. I would need to consult the service manual. In fact, it's always good advice never to start randomly twiddling knobs, adjusters in the machine itself or any video recorder, because it takes ages to set it back up again, as I can attest to. It took me a couple of hours to set a JVC-HR3660 back up again, and it still wasn't working. So in the end I gave that one away to someone that likes those piano key machines. And after all the work I'd done, all he needed to do to get it working was to connect the servo board correctly. I'd misplaced or misconnected 2 connections. As soon as he did that, perfect picture. I was quite surprised. I got it set up perfectly, just had 2 connectors misplaced. Oh well, he's enjoying it now, so it's not the end of the world and it lives on, so that's always good. Anyway, with this one, we're going to park this one now, and we'll probably need to get hold of that transistor. So I'll just move this back over there, power it off, pop this back in. So just need to gently persuade that back into the machine, like so, which is actually going okay. And it should, if I go back a bit there, and back a bit and down, that should clip into place. There we go, I think that's sort of getting there, just taking a bit of additional persuasion. And what's it doing now? Yeah, I'm pretty certain that's clipping in. Anyway, let's pause on this one, and I'll be back shortly with the other machine I want to have a quick look at. Yes, it's this again. So this is the second part of this video, and we're back with the bloody Pi. Oh, you are the bane of my life. Why did I ever agree to repair you? Now, the first thing is to settle a discussion my friend Alex and I were having, and that is, does this cover the aux ports, or have Philips really super cheaped out and not included any kind of connectivity that you could use with the super expensive external whatchamacallit Dewberry? Nope, they haven't super cheaped out. There it is, all in its multi-connector glory. Let's grab a photo of that, complete with that there, so I can prove that to Alex later. And turns out actually he was right, because my money was on Philips not even including that edge connector. His money was on the fact that, yeah, they probably actually did, because that would be silly if they didn't. So behind here is probably a DIN as well, although I'm not going to play about with that one too much. So yes, this one does have the aux connector, and he has actually recently managed to find the auxiliary module for one of these, which I think bolts onto there, little cable into there, and then you've got yourself your composite in and out. They are very, very, very rare, and yeah, so that was a pretty good find, to be honest with you. Anyway, let's pop that back in. Now, I was doing a bit of investigating, and one of the sources of my investigation seemed to suggest that the problems that I'm experiencing with this, which are numerous and plentiful, well, actually just to do with the deck, to be honest with you, could be as simple as, well, not as simple as, could be to do with the servo control circuit and the NiCad battery, which lives around that particular circuit board. I'm not sure if you can actually see it in here, as it is hidden away. But there is, tucked away in here, there it is, I think I can see it down there. There is an onboard battery. I think it's this board here. So I'm going to pop that out a second and we'll take a look at the battery. If the battery is oozed everywhere, then we possibly have the cause of all of our misery. If it hasn't, then the search continues. So let's start off by pulling this out. This is going to be the traditional V2000 early Philips way of getting things out, which is very much like a... Does anybody remember slot 1? So slot 1 was a processor slot from the late 90s, early 2000s, and it was particularly prevalent with Pentium 2. So to save space on the motherboard, or rather because the motherboard was already taken up with North and South bridge chips, the processor board, or the processor itself and its associated cache, was placed onto a daughter board, which slotted into this slot, also known as slot 1. AMD also had their own version, and this was actually at the point, probably the first point, where the processor manufacturers, the major processor manufacturers, that being AMD and Intel, started to actually go their own way as regards motherboard designs. So up to socket 7, which was really popular and did last for quite a few years, up to socket 7, you had all manufacturers using the same basic motherboard design and the same socket. So AMD with their K5s and K6s were all using socket 7s. Intel with various Pentium and Pentium MX CPUs also using socket 7. Then when the Pentium 2 came out, Intel went their own direction and started to use motherboards which were designed for Intel chips only. They were not designed to support AMD chips. So from that point onwards, and up until including today, motherboards have either been designed with AMD chipsets and sockets or Intel chipsets and sockets, which is a bit annoying. It was great in the socket 7 days where you could just take a good socket 7 motherboard and shove any processor that you wanted into it, including those weird Cyrix things that came out for a little bit, the 6x86 affairs. But yeah, those days ended quite abruptly in the late 90s. Well, yeah. In fact, Intel, AMD actually developed processors for socket 7 boards quite some time after Intel had moved on to their own architecture, and they really did get quite a lot of life out of the socket 7 motherboards. And yeah, here's the board I was on about. There's the battery, and it looks like the battery has actually been really badly soldered in to the point where the leg has melted off. So I'm actually going to get this out. Let's take these various connectors off. Let's get this out of the deck. A few of those Mullard tropical fish capacitors, which just never seem to break, which is good, in contrast to the dodgy light blue weird Philips capacitors, which by this age are usually knackered anyway. This is bloody unusual. I've never seen this in a video recorder before. This chip is actually in its own socket, so you could just pull the chip out to replace it. That is really odd and rather novel. That's not something I've actually ever seen before. This battery though is not old. It's not recent, but it's certainly not old either. But I don't like the way it's just like that. So I'm going to chop it out. I think you can also see at some point it has actually damaged a couple of the components on the board. This transistor here is a good example. That leg, although it doesn't look it there, when you look at it there, it is a little bit corroded. So let's just pop that there. I think we put the tester back in its little box, but I've got the little box over here, so let's whip out the tester again. Ideally I should be doing this with it out of circuit, but I'd be interested, seeing as everything has been completely discharged on this, if you can actually get something out of it with it in situ. So there's one, there's another, and there is another. Yes, it might be okay. Not as badly affected as I thought it was. Actually, it is quite badly affected because they've literally just pulled away due to corrosion. In fact, that's literally fell on the floor. These ones are a little bit stronger, but it looks like the battery has actually taken out this one. So I need to now have a quick look on the floor to try and recover that transistor, so we'll get the type off of it. Absolute worst case, I should be able to consult the circuit diagram. And yeah, you can see there, just focusing on that, that that has corroded away, and it is the battery that's actually done that. That doesn't look good in the slightest. So for reference, this is a 6 SR50. So that's a 6 SR50. These other ones are also 6 SR50s or 8 SR50s or BSR50s. That's either 8 or BSR50 or 8 SR50. So we need to work out what those are. That's an NEC 8355C, which I've seen before in, I'm sure it's a servo circuit, this one. I'm sure I've seen those before. But that has corroded quite badly at some point and taken this little fella with it. Right, let's have a fun game of weird capacitors. Yay, it's the light blue weird capacitors that Philips seem to love at this era. 10 volts and 47 microfarads. Alright then. How close is it to that today? So we're on about this one here. How close are you to rated microfarad ratings in this day and age? 10 volts. 47 microfarads. And it is 126.7 microfarads. That sounds odd. 1.1 ohms ESR. Okay. Probably replace that, to be honest with you. And the next one is literally a capacitor, because you cannot see the ratings because it's been soldered in such a way that they're facing down. Thanks, Philips engineer. Top stuff. Good work. Right. Let's have a go and see what the machine, this little reader, thinks it is. Okay, this little reader thinks it is a... Same as the last one, actually. I probably need to measure those out of circuit. So we'll keep this out of the machine, as we're going to attack that one next in my journey to resolve the problems with this machine and its bloody servo issues. One thing I will do, though, is very quickly give the old socket on the bottom a bit of a spruce, along with these pinaroos. There we go. Right. And there we are. So this is the battery that came off. I very much doubt that has any kind of charge left in it, although I am ready to be surprised. So let's put it on the old direct voltage, direct current. Ah, okay, it's got 3.8 volts and it is holding, supposed to hold 3.6 volts. So it's holding the charge. Okay. I won't throw that one away. I'll pop that somewhere safe. I might be able to reuse that because it hasn't oozed everywhere. It does look like it has been replaced at some point in the not so far distant past. And it does look like it could be viable, which is good. But I'm not going to reuse it in this machine, to be honest with you. This is very much a case of out it goes, not going back in again. So we've got all the connectors removed from the board. We'll just tuck those into there, out of the way. Pop that down and just pop these screws back in. And then this can go and sit out of the way. And then the next time we see it, I'll be replacing the capacitors on that board and also replacing that little transistor as well. So that could actually be one of the drive transistors for the deck, if that is indeed the servo control board, which, looking on various forums on the internet, it seems to suggest that it actually is. If it is, then we may have actually discovered the problem, and if this works after that, I will be very surprised. I'm actually beginning to enjoy, dare I say it, working on these machines because, oh, I hate to say this, they are quite logically laid out. The problem with these is documentation. If they had good documentation, as in Ferguson and JVC levels of quality of service diagrams and circuit diagrams, they would be a breeze. You would be able to go, oh yeah, that's that does that. That's actually the tuner board. I think one of these ones is Chroma, or it might be one of these, as these have got delay lines on them. That one I've removed could be servo control. The chips on it do look like the same sort of chips used in VHS decks that I've looked at, and also Betamax decks with on their servo control boards. So that is something that is quite possible. And they look a little bit less homemade than some of the other circuit boards in the same machine, which is interesting. It looks like that one's actually been done, well, not by a GCSE student, so there you go. Right, anyway, that is going to conclude today's video. So we've had a good look at the Philips, and we've identified possibly a dodgy transistor, drive transistor, for the main board itself, or the display itself. We've identified on this one that there are previous corrosion issues, which have obviously attacked the legs on that little transistor. And we've identified the number on that transistor as well. In fact, these other ones are probably going to be exactly the same. I'm just looking at these four here. They're probably going to be the same. In fact, I'm just looking at some of the others. That's a BC558. Not sure what that one is. Not sure what those two are. This is a case probably where I'll have to consult the circuit diagram to find out for sure. Anyway, yeah, that leg there is really corroded. It's literally just flopping about. It should be a lot stiffer than that, but that's probably part of the problem. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.